Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to another Threemarlet's Counter Monkey. Now, this one today I'm doing, it's sort of a counter to Spoonie's latest Counter Monkey about Don't Play Evil. Mainly because out of all the campaigns I've done, I've played more evil characters than I've played good characters. And now he does say this. It's a different when you're playing an evil aligned campaign, when the campaign is designed to be evil, and that is very true. Uh, once it's set up where everybody's evil, Spoonie tends to be one of those players where you can tell he's what I like to call the goody two-shoe players. He wants to be too much like the movies. I'm more natural, and me and my friends are all Game of Thrones fans. So for us, coming up with the ideal of a campaign where everyone's kind of dastardly bastards and they can work together, it works for us. Same reason was we're also big history buffs. So we also kind of know that throughout history, it's really a bunch of assholes being assholes. That's kind of the blunt of it. So for us, it's easier, I think, to break that down. Yeah, Spoonie's probably a little bit more of a cinematic version. But yeah, like I said, Game of Thrones, perfect example there. And you want to say how the best way to work with the campaign, which I'll do an entire separate video on just how to set up an evil campaign, is to make sure you pick your roles well. That's pretty much it. That's why. One guy's a wizard, one guy's a thief, one guy's the muscle, the fighter. So, okay, you can see why these guys are working together. Everyone brings something to the table. They all benefit from it. Even sometimes with the wizard. Like I said, we'll get into that in a little bit. But Spoonie's main point was bringing an evil character into a good campaign. And there are several excellent ways you can do this. One is being the secret, and this one kind of relies on what he did say in his video, which was, be honest. Okay, tell everybody you're evil. This works. This works on two things. One, if the goody two-shoe characters, and this happened in one campaign I did, are dumb as shit. This goes to the DM. Okay, everyone, I'm smart. You've got the more, like in the campaign I did where I was an evil sorcerer, and everyone else was good or neutral. It actually turns out about half the party was just neutral, so they really didn't care. Or neutral good, or something along those lines, where they would have been okay. One, there was a very good reason why they brought me in. I was the only mage, or sorcerer. I was the only magic user. And two, they were. This works as, in this particular instance, why it worked for bringing somebody in. They were on the run. So right there, narratively, if you're thinking about what this is, okay, this is the characters having to get into the seedy underworld and having to use, go and work with and for people that are not of the best nature just to survive and get out of their situation. So right there, if you're looking for an excuse of how you can bring in an evil campaign or evil characters, is if there's going to be an evil character, make it this is a guy they got to work with because of their circumstances. And it's always one of those cases where you can always justify, after several missions or quests or whatever you want to call them, they begin to understand and work with the guy. There's like a mutual respect building between the two. And then after that, you can allow that to just continue on. Okay, once you get the ball rolling, okay, you guys saved my back a couple times. I could work with you. This guy, he's helped us out. He's saved us. I wouldn't leave my kids with him, but when it comes to business, we can work with this guy. Now, with me, actually, in that campaign, what was my motivations for sticking with Goody Two-Shoe group there was there was a character which, I'm not sure what you would call this character, but he's the plot driver. He's what in a story would be the main character, which sometimes as a DM's going to have to do that. You're going to have to pick a character where basically the story's going to revolve around this guy. Sometimes it'll happen organically, like this is some sort of curse will happen to him or something will happen that the truth gets revealed. Or he'll have the one with the most personal grudge against the main baddie. In this case, it was one of the guys was found in a mine, and it was a time element to it, like he was trapped from like 500 years before. And my character, the excuse was I was in a bar and I noticed this guy, he had tattoos. It was kind of like Jack tattoo, you know. What do they mean? And my character kind of we didn't define it then, but the idea was my character knew more about these tattoos on him, knew that they signified that he was from a different era, and this is something me and the DM didn't work out yet, but we kind of had an idea for the future that we would know that there was some sort of power to be gained. So my character was sticking with this group to try to figure out this guy. And by the same token, I have a vested interest in preserving at least this guy's life and making sure I can stick and be around this guy. So, because the ultimate power that I can my character's thinking of achieving, or actually my character was really just kind of interested in getting the magical abilities of the ancient past, which was kind of the other thing. This is there's different types of evil, and one of the ways this is how this character was able to fit in with this group was he wasn't looking for power. He wasn't political power, controlling individuals. Why would I want to run around and have peasants do whatever? I was a sorcerer, I want boxes moved around my sorcerer's lab. I can have telekinesis, and boom, it's done. He's a rather antisocial guy. So he's not looking to control people's lives. He wasn't a sociopath. He just wants greater, magical and ethereal power. And that is a guy you can work with as good players. Like, he's willing to kill, murder, or whatever to get there. His motivations are completely selfish. But at the same time, he's not going to be a serial killer sociopath that's going to slit your throats in the evening. He's like, why would I bother doing that? If I don't like you, I'm probably just going to say fuck off. But so there's at least an element where once the rest of the cast once the rest of the party understands that, you can understand, while some of them are able to work with that, they'll be able to figure this out. And this kind of goes to working with the DM and making sure you have a good DM who can figure out the narrative of how these characters all interact. Now I'll get into some other ways in just a second. But that's how that worked. Is basically a couple of the more intelligent characters there figured out this guy. Okay, this guy, he's dastardly, he's bastard. He's got the stuff we need, and frankly, he doesn't look like he's going to turn us into the authorities. And even though he's evil, he's not going to, take over the world. He's not interested in taking over the world. He just wants power for himself, and controlling shit in people's lives is not entertaining to him. So we can trust him a little bit. And that's how that worked. And it works with your party, how to understand it. And if you already have neutral thieves and stuff, the thieves, they kind of don't care. They don't trust anybody anyway. But like I said, there's other ways you can bring in evil characters to your party. One, like I said, they're on the run. So just basically, if you're ever going to have your characters be rebels, or there's an evil, corrupt regime and stuff, and you want to have to deal with more of an underworld character, you can have your character is a thief. Well, you guys are pushed into the underworld, and it can be, especially if you don't have the paladin, it can be okay, we got to work with some nasty guys, and there's that thieves code that most of your guys can work with. I'm dastardly bastard to everybody outside of the people I work with, because that's as necessary for me to survive. Or even real life criminals are like this, where there's levels of they want their close friends they consider completely different from the rest of society. So the people they actually know, they were, if I were to go back to some of my natural philosophy classes, they had the social contract with people that they know. So they would rob almost any store except for the store, the mead hall they always go to. They're not going to ever rob that place because they like that place. They follow the rules there, but anywhere else out of that, their comfort area, they wouldn't. So people they associate with, he's just not gonna. It would be impolite. It's weird, but that's how human psychology works. And if you ever need to justify that to the DM, that's how you go. DMs have a very hard time, even if like they want to follow that stereotypical rule. If you can pull out that that's how it works in real life, it's very hard for the DM to argue that against that. Because yeah, the DM's arguing it's real life, and then come on, how's this work? Come on now. Who's being unreasonable then? So that's always if you need to present it with the DM, and he's kind of like that. Point out like, okay, this guy's gonna if he knows you and you guys get introduced, you got to do a couple jobs. All of a sudden, on a psychological level, that character's not gonna screw over these guys because he's on a different deal with them. That's not to say he might inadvertently get the party in trouble when he goes, robbing a noble's house and they kind of go, known associates, you guys, then you might still have some issues, but still. And again, if your whole point of your characters is they're on the run, then even the good characters are going to be, we've got to make some tough choices. We have to go into the underworld. That means we have to associate with such people. Now that's one way. And I said, best way without the paladin. Now again, sometimes you have the paladins that are reasonable paladins. Then, like I said, there's two ways you can do that. One, they are paladins, but they are very veteran paladins. And therefore they become somewhat cynical, and they will sometimes even find loopholes within their oaths. As a character trait, that can work great. To making them extremely uncomfortable, but they're not going to act as much, as long as it's not being done directly in front of them. The other way is if you have a really, really dumb paladin, which is what the case I had in that first party, where the paladin is just like complete dumbass. He had like the lowest intelligence. We had an extremely low intelligence, so we really could just like tell him anything and he would just buy it. Which led to hilarity, to the point where we were like, hey, like we're about to torture this guy. We would literally just tell, hey, look over there, and the paladin would roll, and his intelligence was so bad he would always fall for it, and we punch him, punch the guy. That's one way to do it. The other way, and this is probably the most creative way to actually really screw with the system, is what I like to call, especially if you have an assassin character, is to roll the Vatican assassin, as I like to call him, a religious assassin. He is a dastardly creature, but he is part of the religion. And you make him, and the Vatican part of the assassin is that he's officially an assassin sanctioned by the higher church. So if you have a character where you have, or a party where you have maybe like a noble hang out with these guys, and you've got a cleric, a priest, and a couple paladins. And then this is where I like to call the higher authority pulls the party together. They go, by the way, this is our guy from our secret division of assassins, and he outranks all of you under church guidelines. If he feels it is necessary to kill somebody for the greater cause, he has the authority of Bahamut to do so. He is the exception to the rule, which can drive paladins crazy, but because of like their sanctioned ability of the church, they can't do anything if this guy decides to slit somebody's throat. If he goes, and you could play it where that character is, maybe the way you play that is, they're doing their stuff, but they do like a little prayer afterwards, or maybe you can say like they put a little etching in their arm for every like thing they do, something like that, where there's like a little bit of remorse, but in the same, they're still kind of like very dastardly bastards, will do anything to accomplish the mission. They're kind of more of the greater good types. But because they have the backing of the church, everything they do is completely sanctioned, and if they do it, it's okay. Even the paladins, therefore, have to accept it. The priests and the clerics, probably the easiest to go, well, I hate this, but he's got the actual backing of Bahamut himself to do this. So, if you want to incorporate an assassin, that's the best way to do it. Vatican assassin. Now, the other way to do the evil party is kind of what I just said. The party is called together by higher authority. That doesn't necessarily mean like an actual god, although that is one of the easiest ways, especially if you have paladins, which frankly, paladins are such a pain in the ass, a lot of people never bother playing with them. Mostly, I've seen with Spoonie and a couple other, everyone talks about the problems with paladins. It's to the point where really the paladins are the character. If you want to play, you've got to get special permission to play a paladin most times. Don't just go in expecting to play a paladin. If you want to play a paladin, you make sure you get authority from your DM. You make sure it's okay. Now, like I said, my group, we always figure out ways. So we kind of actually, I talked about the Game of Thrones earlier. There's a wonderful line in there with Tyrion says, or was it Jaime? I forget. One of the two. That I think it was Jaime. Now that I think about it, but that knights have to take so many oaths, you can always find a contradiction. So that sometimes we'll play with that. It depends on your group, but really it comes to the case of if you're gonna play paladin, you gotta get the permission to do it. Make sure it's not gonna mess up. So, and to the point where I don't think a lot of people actually play paladins anymore because they're such an issue. But I digress. So Paladin's a completely separate issue, special authority only. But called together by higher authority is normally where everyone's part of some sort of organization. And this has happened in a couple of our campaigns, and why we were able to have people that were kind of evil is you have these organizations that are normally dedicated to some sort of protection, or it's just like an old order that people can join if you're worthy enough, or if you're sent there to join them, or it's a military order. And these are one of the more, in my group, more common excuses. One is a perfect excuse as to why the party is formed. Is you're all members, you're all kind of low-level members, and they need there's goblins in a cave somewhere. Well, let's assemble an ad hoc task force to handle that. You one person is in charge, the rest follow him. If one guy's like the Black Knight, he's an asshole, but he still has a code of honor. Everyone's still got to follow him because he's part of the order. So actually, in the one party, that's what we called it, the order. And some of these groups, they think you can have them to where they have their good face and their dark face. They're one of those organizations where they're supposed to be good, but there's a lot there. They know to work on the dark side, shall we say. You can have a lot of fun exploring the overall attitudes of the order, as I like to call it. One of your best excuses, because then even if a guy's a little evil, he's got an excuse. Now, you might have to wonder, depending on the nature of the order, why someone might be almost a complete sociopath or whatever. That could be a problem. If you got something like the Night's Watch from Game of Thrones, where literally, there's a perfect example. I go to Game of Thrones. If you're gonna basically have a DM that can do like a type of world like that, where you can have people that are honorably noble, but they have to also serve alongside, where you have reality set in. Night's Watch is a perfect example, or make a copy of that almost, where they're stuck defending the borders, out in the sticks, and some people join up for the adventure, but others are actually forced to. Like, they are criminals who are given the choice of, you want to spend like the rest of your life in a dungeon, or you're gonna join the order of whatever knights. And once they're there, everyone has to treat them as brothers. And in fact, as far as the order is concerned, you having problems with them is more of a problem, because there's only a couple of people that really join up for the adventure stuff. Most people are forced to join, so they're the more valuable recruitment pool. So there you go, right there. Yeah, this guy is a murderer, but you've got to accept working with him. And there's no point in complaining because most of the people in the groups are murderers. Now the other is kind of like this, where you're in the army, where there's a war going on. You've been recruited in the army, and that's where you can really have a guy that's kind of really sociopathic. And the commanders do not care because he just kills the enemy good. You know? So your officers don't care that this guy's a sociopath. Maybe to the point where even if he's kind of going off on civilians every now and then, like it's war. Especially if you're in the enemy's land, it could also be where sometimes even the generals have an apathetic attitude to civilian casualties. Oh, a couple of our guys slaughtered a family. Shame on him. Bad, but whatever. Or even that, like rather than nonchalant. Well, I didn't order it, but whatever. It's war. Happens. You still got to work with the guy. Shut up. He's in your platoon. Right there, another good excuse of why you've got to work with him. If you're going to have evil characters, this is pretty much the best way of doing it. Other than the classic, you have a shared goal. If you want to actually have it where you don't have the entire campaign planned out, or you don't want to have it to where the big bad is set from the get-go, having your guys be in there's some sort of militant order, have them be spies, which is another good one. And so they're all working for the same spy masters. Or having them be in the military where, these guys are just assigned to each other, and even if, like I said, as long as the evil character is not killing friendly soldiers, basically high brass is like, we don't care. Which is actually pretty much how real medieval armies worked. If you were French soldiers and you were in some sort of town in Germany, Lord Commander, the noble running the army isn't going to care if one of your guys go into one of the local villages and rapes a woman. They really did not care. It's not one of my peasants. So that's pretty much how that works. Now the other is, of course, the most classic. Everyone has the same goal. Take that, and this can take a couple different routes. One is what I like to call the patriotic front, la resistance. If the plot is that an enemy has attacked and taken over your country, even if you're evil, you can still be patriotic. Or you might be at the point where you are fucking kill everybody, but it's mostly against the enemy, and you kind of see collaborators everywhere. This is where you kind of get to that you've taken it too far, buddy scenario, where you just want to take out, everybody's a traitor. We need it. All these civilians that are dealing with the enemy, they gotta be cut down, dude. We should hang them all. Here's your evil. But yeah, the La Resistance was again kind of more the underground stuff, but where even maybe like people like thieves are not liking the new regime because they're too strict. So, if you have good guys, they might be like, well, they're gonna fight with us. We desperately need people, so we're gonna take them. It goes to the same thing, but again, it goes also to the motivation. Just because someone's evil doesn't mean there's a lot of different types of evil. And being patriotic can be one of them. You can be evil and patriotic at the same time. So there's a good motivator right there. That kind of also goes with the army regime. And you kind of understand, again, what that evil character is going to do. He's evil, he's bashful in his personal dealings, but when it comes to our overall mission and what we're trying to do, he genuinely believes in our cause. So we can trust him to further the cause that we're all here for. Maybe he's gonna steal shit. Maybe he's gonna do shit to get his own benefits. Like most of us, he's gonna, try to get positions of power after this is done. Maybe he's going to make, a little bit more dastardly deeds. But when it comes to the prisoner dilemma, he's going to be like the cut all their throats type of guy. Maybe he's even willing to sell collaborators into slavery and such like that. But he's never going to betray whatever kingdom it is, or the land. You know, he's not going to sell us out to the enemy, because he's a true patriot. You know, it's kind of like, if you want examples of that, look at the Soviet Union sometimes, because some of their people were like, evil bastards, really? Or even if you read that, some of the soldiers acted, they're very dehumanized based on, of course, what they were going through under Stalin's regime. But they were patriotic as hell. They would steal from other units. They would rape. They would take bribes all over the place. But their one thing, they would never sell, even for a ton of money. They would never sell out to a German. Hell no. And I don't mean to insult all Russians. A lot of them were patriotic, but there was plenty of that were like that. There was even probably a couple Americans that were fighting that were like that too. So there's your example. There's your motivator that you need, which works perfect for combining. And sometimes this is kind of fun to have it really where you have this out, like I said with the doing the La Resistance thing, where you're kind of the enemy has occupied the country, where you have evil characters and good characters, and they both know they have to work together. They don't like each other, but they don't like this other guy even more. And both sides know that it's one of those that can, if you have a good group, you have some really great character stuff there. Where even the good characters, they want to hate these guys for doing this stuff, but they know they still got to work. And the evil characters kind of get annoyed having to work with the good guys, but even the evil characters know the only way for them to win is to work with these guys. It works. It's great for a little tension building stuff. And of course you have the big bad stuff, which works fine. He killed my father. I'm going to fucking kill this guy. I'm a thief, but this guy, I stole from him one time, and he caught me, and he didn't turn me over. He found out where I lived, and he killed my wife right in front of me, left me in a gutter. He thought he put me in a dungeon, thought he broke me permanently, and I escaped. I am going after this guy. If you're going after him too, fine, but right there, good characters know that they can trust this guy is going to go after the big bad. It works. Let's see, is there any other good scenarios for having to bring the good guy in? Like I said, in real life, there's a lot of variety to good and evil and all that stuff. It depends on if you know you have a good DM, really. If you have a DM that's very good at on-the-fly narrative and kind of seeing how this stuff's going to play out and picking up the scenarios, if you know you have that good DM, you could normally do this because he'll think of ways that'll force everyone to work together. Oh, I almost forgot the other one is the family. If everyone plays the same race, or if most of the cast, if most of your characters are all playing the same race, this has always struck me as why people don't do this. Make you all the same members of the noble house, and if you have one or two people that are not the same race, you can do one the adoption route. Two, they're a hostage. So if you've got one guy that's like an elf, you make it that he's been raised in that household because there's a treaty. So in order to make sure that both sides don't attack, block this bay that they share, we sent one of our sons that way, and they sent one of our sons to one of their sons to our household that we hold as a hostage in order to guarantee peace. This is what they did back in the day. And so for really most of his life, this guy was raised in this household, and he's sworn to fidelity to the lord of the house. And probably the best way is, again, this is kind of the party called together by higher authority. The actual head of the household, or head of the noble house, castle, whatever, is not a player character. The other thing you can do if somebody else is like somebody's an orc or something is that he's just like a sworn protector of the household. If you have one or two of those guys, it's alright, as long as the majority of the players are actually members of whatever noble house is being done. So everyone has, you know, so you can have a character that's like batshit insane evil, but he's, he's not going to turn against his family. Everyone's got that crazy, like, everyone's got that cousin that are like, you're like, he is, my God, he is a big asshole. And at the same time, he's your cousin. So, if, like, shit was going down in a neighborhood, you wouldn't hesitate to pick him up and go, like, dude, I need backup right now. Get over here. Understand where I'm coming with that? It works right there with the family angle. If the one guy's, like, maybe a bit crazy, power, backstabby, as long as he's not the type that's going to backstab the family, and like he still respects the family overall, it works with that. Everyone else get annoyed with him, pissed off at him. You can have tensions with him every now and then, just like you might have with your real relatives, but you buy it. Likewise, you can also use a very similar thing to the family in bringing an evil player to an established campaign. And that is, like, he's one of the more established players' cousins or something. He's family. So right there we understand he's probably not going to turn... Again, you have to do the thing where he might be evil, but he's loyal to his family. Or he's just not going to turn against his family. So therefore, since the brother or cousin is with you, you understand, your characters at least will understand that this guy's not going to attack you, slit your throats or something. So those are basically the various ways you can actually incorporate an evil player. Probably the best and easiest is, like I said, the Le Resistance, or the we have to go underground scenario. Because that's basically, in both of those situations, it is normally the good characters going to them, saying to themselves, okay, we've got to, get down low here and understand the underworld. The only way to survive is to kind of work with these types. So right there, that works. The family one's also a pretty good one, because most people understand that right from the bat. And the military one. Those are probably the 4 strongest and easiest ways if you're going to do a mix. Again, problem is normally not with... People are really cynical about religion nowadays, so the priest and the cleric thing. Normally, like I said, Vatican assassin them. Basically, it comes down to your party. No matter what, as long as you're playing with characters that you, or players that you can work with, that you like, and knowing that they can work with something like this is the main key. And the DM. I've already said that before. I'm kind of repeating myself at this point, so it's probably a good time for us to close down. At some point, I will probably do another one of these about doing evil campaigns, and maybe quickly talk about bringing a good character into an evil campaign, which, frankly, is normally easier than getting evil characters into good campaigns or neutral campaigns. Oh yeah, one I almost completely forgot. End of the world scenarios where we need to do this or the world ends. Another good motivator. You see that all the time with, like, plots. Where, look at most television series. Or like Saturday morning cartoons, 80s and 90s. There was always that episode where, like, the world was going to be destroyed. Therefore, the good guys and the arch nemesis had to team up. It's universal, where there's always that episode. So right there, look at those as a good example. And normally it's the entire world's going to be destroyed. We're both going to die if we don't fix this. That was my last one to add. Like I said, we'll probably do one of those. I actually want to really talk about that one campaign where it was this evil, and we kind of went off the rails, but it was in a completely awesome way. And again, that goes with a DM that's very good at being flexible. But that's for another time. So, signing on off. I apologize if it was a little nasally. It's allergy season. Oh well. Hasta luego.